Let's have a look at some simplifying expressions in algebra. What we need to be able to do is take an expression like you see here and understand how to multiply out the brackets and add and subtract the remaining terms. So let's start with some basics of multiplication in algebra. When we're dealing with algebra, we usually use brackets to note that we're multiplying. So if you see something like this, x bracket x, this means we're multiplying x by x. And when you multiply x by x, you will get x to be squared. Another example, if you see x multiplied by x squared, when you multiply x by x squared, you will get x cubed. What we're really doing here is adding the powers. In this case, we have 1 plus 2 is 3. And in this case, you have 1 plus 1 is 2. When you're multiplying the same base, you're adding the powers. Let's have a look at some more examples. Let's say I have 2x multiplied by 5. We would know that that would be 10x because our 2 by our 5 is 10. Have a look at one more example for you. Let's say I had 3x multiplied by 4x. That would be, well, we multiply the numbers, 3 by 4, that's 12. And multiplying the x by the x, 12x squared. One more example for you. Let's say I have minus 2x multiplied by 7x. The answer in this case, well, minus 2 by 7 is minus 14, and x by x is x squared. When we're dealing with multiplication in algebra, it's very important we're aware of how the signs work. So, for example, if you've got a plus multiplied by a plus, the answer will be a plus. If you have a minus multiplied by a minus, the answer will also be a plus. If you have a plus multiplied by a minus, the result will be a minus. And if you have a minus multiplied by a plus, the result will be a minus. So let's take a look at a couple of more examples here. So let's say I have 3x multiplied by minus 4. That would be minus 12x because plus times a minus is a minus. Now, I didn't write in the plus symbol here. It's important that you see that. All right. I could have wrote in plus 3x. All right. But generally how we work it is if you see no sign, we assume that it's a plus. So this 3x is a plus 3x times minus 4 minus 12x. What about minus 2x times minus 6x. Now we know that minus times minus is a plus, so the solution is going to be plus 12x to be squared. What about 3 by minus 4y? That would be minus 12y. What about minus 6x multiplied by minus 5y? Well, minus 6 times minus 5 would be plus 30. And x times y, we literally just call that xy. So once we understand the basic ideas of how to multiply terms and how to handle the signs, we look at multiplying into brackets. So let's say I have something like 3 times x plus 2. It's important to understand here that the 3 is multiplied into the bracket. So the 3 is multiplying the x and also multiplying the 2. So the answer in this case would be 3 times x is 3x. And then 3 times plus 2 would be plus 6. Let's have a look at another example. 2x times x minus 5 equals, well, 2x times x is 2x squared. And 2x times minus 5 is minus 10x. Okay, let's keep looking at some examples here. Let's say I have minus 5x times 3x plus 1. What will that equal? Well, minus 5x by 3x. Minus 5 by 3 is minus 15, and x times x is x squared. So minus 5x times 3x, that's minus 15x squared. Then minus 5x times plus 1, minus 5x times plus 1 would be minus 5x. One more example for you here. Minus 4y into 2y minus 7. Okay, so what will that be? Well, minus 4y times 2y, that's going to be minus 8y squared. And minus 4y times minus 7, remember minus times minus is plus, so minus 4y times minus 7 would be plus 28y. We also need to have a look at some addition in algebra, and addition and subtraction with algebraic terms. And the important thing with addition is we can only add like terms. We can only add similar terms. So for example, if I had something like 3x plus 2 plus 5x plus 7, and I want to tidy up this expression, I want to add together what can be added. We can only add like terms. So we can add the x's to other x's, and we can add the numbers to other numbers. So when I tidy this expression up, it will equal the 3x plus the 5x, let's call that 8x, and the 2 plus the 7, that's plus 9. Let's have a look at another example. 4x minus 6 plus 8x plus 2. So once again, I can add the like terms. So I can add the 4x to the 8x, and I can add the minus 6 and the plus 2. So my next line will be, so 4x plus 8x, we've got 12x. And then minus 6 plus 2, minus 6 plus 2, when you add that is minus 4. Let's have a look at another example. Let's say I have 3x squared minus 5x plus 2 minus 7x squared plus 3x plus 11. So now I've three types of terms. I have my x squareds, I have my x's, and I have my constants. And once again, you can add like terms. So in this case, I will get, so the 3x squared and the minus 7x squared will give me minus 4x squared. Minus 5x plus 3x is minus 2x. And plus 2 plus 11 is plus 13. So adding and subtracting in algebra is fairly straightforward once you remember that we can only add like terms. All right, so if the terms are similar to each other, we can add them. So we can add x squareds to x squareds, x's to x's, numbers to numbers, and so on. So let's get back to the first sheet that we were looking at. So we wanted to simplify expressions, and in order to do this, we need to understand the rules of multiplying and the rules of addition and subtraction in algebra, which we've already looked at. So let's take a look at the first question here. Question 1. 3 bracket 6a plus 2 plus 4 bracket 3a minus 3. And we want to simplify this expression as much as possible. So here's the expression again. 3 times 6a plus 2 plus 4 times 3a minus 3. So the first thing we're going to do is our multiplication. So multiplying into the bracket here. 3 by 6a, that's going to be 18a. And then the 3 by the plus 2, plus 6, plus 4 by 3a, that's going to be 12a. And the 4 by the minus 3 is minus 12. So that's the multiplication done. The next thing to remember is for addition, we can add like terms. So the a's can get added together, and then the numbers can get added together. So looking at the a's, 18a plus 12a, that's 30a. And then 6 minus 12 will total to minus 6. Okay, let's have a look at another example here. The next one I'm going to do for you guys is this question 5 here. So I've already this one written out. So we've got 2 by a plus b minus 3 minus 3 by 2a minus b plus 4. So I need to simplify this expression, tidy it up as much as possible. So 2 by a is going to be 2a. 2 by b plus 2b, 2 by minus 3, minus 6. On over here, minus 3 by 2a, minus 6a, minus 3 by minus b, so minus by minus, plus 3b, and minus 3 by plus 4, minus 12. So that is the multiplication done. The next step is the addition and subtraction, tidying it up. So the a's can get added to the a's, the b's can get added to the b's, and the numbers can get added to the other numbers. So my next line, 2a take 6a, that's minus 4a. 2b plus 3b, that's plus 5b. And minus 6 minus another 12, that's minus 18. So this is the expression tidied up as much as possible here. We'll go through one more example here. The last one I'll do for you guys is this question 13 here. So I have this written out. We've got 4d times 2d squared plus 2d minus 3 minus d times d plus 1. So let's start with the multiplication. 4d by 2d squared. Well, the 4 by the 2 is 8. And the d by d squared would be d cubed. Plus 4d by 2d. That's going to be plus 8d squared, because the 4 by 2 gives me the 8. And the d by the d is the d squared. 4d by minus 3 minus 12d. Moving on here, minus d by d minus d squared, and minus d by plus 1, that's minus 1d. So that is the multiplication done. The next step is to add and subtract the like terms. So we have d cubed. That is the only d cubed on the line. There's nothing else that can be added to. What about the d squares? I have a d squared here and a d squared there. They can be added. And this minus 12d and that minus 1d can be added. So my next line, the 8d cubed stays as it is because there's no other d cubed for it to be added to. 8d squared minus d squared, that's plus 7d squared. And minus 12d minus 1d, that would be minus 13d. So that's our introduction to simplification of expressions in algebra. The main thing for you guys to remember is we started off with our basic rules for multiplication. So when we see brackets, it generally means multiplication. And we have to remember when we're doing multiplication, we have to remember our rules for our signs. Plus by plus being a plus, minus by minus being a plus, and so on and so on. And we also looked at how to multiply into brackets as well. So when you multiply into brackets, you multiply whatever's outside the bracket by every term in the bracket. So once we had all that figured out, the next thing we looked at was addition. And remember, the key thing for addition is we can only add like terms. We can only add similar terms, x's to x's, numbers to numbers, and so on and so on. And we did loads of examples of adding and subtracting like terms. And the final thing we did, once we were comfortable with all of that, was putting it all together to simplify an expression, where we had to do both the multiplication, which is how we went from this step to this step, and then the addition and the subtraction, which is what we did in the next step. So the multiplying into the bracket, keeping track of our terms and our signs, and then remembering we can add and subtract similar terms. So that is your simplification of expressions, guys. The best thing for you to do is practice these questions, check your solution online, and for access to questions, solutions, graded quizzes, and more, visit www.livingmaths.com.